Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mavish Latif Khan, enrolled with roll number 135 of 4th Prof Morning, belonging to group number 17. Today I have been assigned with the Pharmacy Practice PHC 602 course presentation. The main topic is prevention of cardiogenic thromboembolism. But I have assigned the subtopic that is management of anticoagulation around invasive procedures, that is also known as bridge therapy. So moving forward to know what is actually cardiogenic. Cardiogenic thromboembolism is an obstruction that travels from the heart to lodge in a blood vessel, or simply I can say that it is the formation of a fibrin blood clot inside a blood vessel of the heart. That particular clot could be made up of either a fatty material or it could be any other material that has broken away from a blood clot at its site of formation. So obviously it's a disease, it shows some symptoms. Besides some minor symptoms, I have discussed the major ones, which includes leg pain or tenderness of the thigh or calf. When you stretch your leg in that particular condition, you feel cramps over your thigh part or over the calf part of your leg. Then there is also leg swelling, that is also known as edema, and there is shortness of breath. In some of the patients, there is also rapid breathing, but it depends on their condition of respiratory tract. So normally there is shortness of breath, that is SOB. Then the main symptom is the chest pain anywhere under the rib cage. So moving forward, the reasons for the cardiogenic thromboembolism. As you can see in this slide, that this disease particularly accounts for 15% of all heart strokes. As the heart is the vital organ of the body, so it could be affected by many reasons. But the most common predisposing conditions are atrial fibrillation, acute myocardial infarction, prosthetic cardiac valves, and some less common conditions include dilated cardiomyopathy, non-bacterial thrombotic endocarditis, infectious endocarditis, and many more. Now here I am presenting you the diagrammatic view of these reasons. So in this diagram, you can see that there are many reasons for the heart stroke that could be due to either cardiac injury, myocardial infarction, arrhythmia, some other diseases related to strokes. But particularly I am dealing with the thromboembolism, which you can see here in the extreme right side of this diagram. So I am further presenting you a very zoom view of this thromboembolism. Here you can see that in this picture of heart, there is the obstruction in the vein of heart. You can say this particle can be either a fatty material or any other material that I have discussed previously. So this particular hindrance leads to the thromboembolism. Now the main topic, that is prevention of cardiogenic thromboembolism. As we are dealing with the most serious disease, so for not going it more worsen, we have to prevent it at the early stage or at the site of treatment. We can initiate the treatment to prevent this, and for this we have atrial fibrillation, cardiac valve replacement, bridge therapy, and drug interactions. These 4 therapies can be done according to the condition of patient. As you can see in the first one, that is atrial fibrillation, there are 3 therapies can be done, that is anticoagulation before cardioversion, after cardioversion, proximal, permanent, and persistent atrial fibrillation. Then under cardiac valve replacement, you can go with mechanical prosthetic valve or bioprosthetic valve replacement. Then thirdly, we have bridge therapy, the topic which I'm dealing, and the first one, that is management of anticoagulation around invasive procedures. Then around the dental procedures, and lastly, that is drug interactions. Obviously, when we are dealing the therapy of any disease condition, so there are drug interactions involved. These drug interactions can be with legend drugs or can be with the dietary supplements of the patient. But as I'm dealing with the bridge therapy, so as around the invasive procedures, invasive by word you are very known that invasive, it means that it includes the involvement of any surgical instrument, needle, syringe, anything else. So basically it's a surgical procedure that involves the uh, surgery of the heart, or you can say that is their valve replacement, sort of like. So here I am clearing the main view what is bridge therapy actually is. Bridge therapy is the term that refers to the use of a relatively short-acting injectable anticoagulants like unfractionated heparin and low molecular weight heparin. As these substituted heparins have a shorter elimination half-life and they have shorter onset of action, so they can be just stopped prior to the invasive procedure without increasing the risk of bleeding associated with the procedure. In addition, because of their shorter onset of effect, they can be used when other anticoagulant drug is restarted and until the INR reaches the therapeutic range. What is INR? INR is the international normalized ratio of a particular individual patient, although bridge therapy hasn't been studied in randomized clinical trials. We can say that I have previously said there are furthermore options for the treatment of cardiogenic thromboembolism. So depending upon the patient's condition, patient's medical history, current medication, and his immunity about to deal with the particular therapy. On these basis, we do select the therapy or line of treatment. So not in every case we are concerned with the bridge therapy only. There could be other line of treatment as well. So at what particular parameter we can select this bridge therapy treatment? So it is selected when the individualized risk assessment and the bridge planning are necessary for each patient who may require temporary discontinuation of the anticoagulant drug. So when the patients are going under the treatment of anticoagulant drugs, so they have a very high risk, not a very high risk, but you can say they have assessed to having a bleeding disorder symptoms, you can say, or it could be the adverse effect of the anticoagulant drug. So there is the case study regarding the bridge therapy. Okay. So in this case study, there is a CG is a 43-year-old woman with a history of valvular heart disease associated with Marfan syndrome. What is Marfan syndrome? Marfan syndrome is a genetic disorder that affects the connective tissues of individuals, and especially those with the condition tend to be tall and thin with long arms, legs, fingers, and toes. So basically, you can refer this condition to be like somehow similar to the malnutrition ones. They have a very skinny skeleton. Their bones can easily be prominent. So basically, it's a genetic disorder. Okay, besides this, she has a Synjute mitral valve replacement, and her current medication is going on with warfarin 7.5 mg once daily to a goal INR range of 2.5 to 3.5. Now over this point, I'm going to clear your view about INR range, that is international normalized ratio. So for the normal human healthy person, it should be less than 5. This ratio should be less than 5. But for those patients who are undergoing the treatment of anticoagulant drugs, that this woman is also going under the treatment of anticoagulant drug, that is warfarin. So their international normalized ratio came under the range of 2.5 to 3.5. That's why here it is particularly mentioned that warfarin is given to her in order to maintain this particular INR range between 2.5 to 3.5. Okay. Now moving forward, recently she has complained of episodic rectal bleeding despite adequate anticoagulation. As I have told you previously, that it could be the side effect or adverse effect of the anticoagulant drug, that is the bleeding. So currently she is suffering from this disorder too. Now she is scheduled for colonoscopy in the several weeks. That's why her gastroenterologist wants some uh, warfarin plan prior to the procedure. And what are the options, what are the preferable plan for her to undergo, or you can say you can switch to the other anticoagulant drug, as with the warfarin drug she is facing the bleeding disorder. So moving forward, I have prepared some soap notes regarding this case study. Okay. So in subjective, the chief complaint of that lady is the episodic rectal bleeding. Her age is 43 years old, gender is female. Her disease history is the valvular heart disease associated with Marfan syndrome. Medical history she has already done with the subdued mitral valve replacement. And her current medication is warfarin 7.5 mg once daily. So here you can see that she has already been have a mitral valve replacement therapy. So in the upcoming week, she is also scheduled for the colonoscopy. So for this particular case study, we need to give the line of treatment for her to stop that particular rectal bleeding, and also the further risk of bleeding should be suppressed. So here objective, she is scheduled for the colonoscopy in the coming several weeks, and the current INR, that is international normalized ratio, is 2.5 to 3.5. Now coming towards as the lady is already suffering from the episodic rectal bleeding, so there are high chances of further bleeding with the ongoing medication, that is warfarin, and so we have to switch to other line of treatment, because warfarin will further enhance the chance of bleeding during the invasive procedure, which is going to happen in the coming several weeks. That's why we are called upon to give a suitable plan for the reversal of warfarin prior to the procedure or prior to the surgery. So basically, when an invasive procedure is planned, or you can say when the surgery is planned for the heart patients, it is often necessary to reverse the effect of anticoagulant drugs to minimize the risk of bleeding complications associated with the surgery that can be worsened by the presence of that particular anticoagulant drug. So here we are focusing over the warfarin, that is a very high dose anticoagulant. So in bridge therapy, that I have previously told you, that we have to switch towards the short acting and having short elimination half-lives, having short onset of action anticoagulant drugs. Though they are also anticoagulant, but they have short onset of action. So they have very minimum, or you can say very less effect on the bleeding disorders. Further, I have given you a flowchart view that how we can predict that for which line of treatment we have to proceed. As you can see that over the left of this flowchart, there is a low bleeding risk, that is less than 1%. So obviously when there is low bleeding risk, you are not you don't have to worry to discontinue the anticoagulation therapy or the antiplatelet therapy that you are taking for the thinning of your blood. So there is no need to worry when there is no bleeding risk. But on the other hand, when there is a high bleeding risk, that you can see the flowchart over the right side, that is greater than 1%. If there is greater than 1% chance of bleeding, then we have to deal according to it. So there are also two subparts, that there is a low thrombosis risk and there is a high thrombosis risk. So the case study which we are dealing right now, that this lady has a very high thrombosis risk, as because she is already facing the rectal bleeding, and there are also chances of further bleeding during the invasive procedure or during the invasive surgery. So not only we have to cure that rectal bleeding, we we also have to give a surety to the patient that during surgery you won't lose your blood. There will no bleeding during your surgery. So for that particular disease or condition, we are going with the high thrombosis risk treatment, that is the discontinuation of warfarin for 3 to 5 days before surgery. And for the bridge therapy, we have to consider the substituted heparins, that is unfractionated heparin or low molecular weight heparin. And then when the surgery has been done, we can restart our previous treatment. But before that, I have to clear your view about the unfractionated heparin and low molecular weight heparin. That low molecular weight heparin are very costly, and you can say for the unfractionated heparin, the patient has to be hospitalized for that treatment. Though it is not very costly, but you can say the patient has to be hospitalized for that particular bridge therapy. But under the low molecular weight heparin, there is not such need to get hospital. Okay, so over that previous view, there is a plan for the ladies that we are starting with our medication. That firstly, either we have to reverse the effect of warfarin in order to stop the bleeding, bleeding, and already the patient is suffering from that bleeding, rectal bleeding. So we will start our line of treatment, which includes early discontinuation of warfarin for 3 to 5 days prior to the procedure, along with the substitution with the enoxaparin 1 mg per kg q 12 hours when the INR falls below the lower limit of therapeutic range, that is less than 2.5. Now, what is enoxaparin? Enoxaparin is also an anticoagulant drug which is used to treat and prevent the deep vein thrombosis as well as embolism. So here, as we are dealing with the embolism, that's why we are using this drug, and it is also used for the acute coronary syndrome and heart attacks. As it is having an elimination half-life of 4.5 hours, that's why we are using here as a substituted one. Now, the last dose of enoxaparin should be given no later than 24 hours. It means, for example, if you are having a surgery, so you should have to give the last dose of enoxaparin just 24 hours before that surgery period. If you have given that 42 hours or 72 hours prior, then there will be no, you can say, surety for the risk of bleeding. Obviously, there will be a chance of risk of bleeding, so we cannot take any sort of risk for these further surgery process. That's why we have to give the last dose of enoxaparin till 24 hours for the prior to the surgery. Now, the continuation treatment after the procedure of surgery has been done, we can again go back to the warfarin that was restarted at the usual dose, that was 7.5 mg once daily. But here we will do the addition of enoxaparin that should be continued until the INR ratio equalizes to the less than 2.5. Okay, so there is another line of treatment. If the previous line of treatment wouldn't be successful, or you can say if in the early stage, that is during the withdrawal or hold of the warfarin, if the lady got some unusual symptoms, then we can switch our treatment to another one, that is we can hold the warfarin for 2 to 3 days rather than 4 to 5 days prior to the surgery. Along with that, we will administer the vitamin K dose, that is of 2.5 mg per oral 2 days before the surgery, and this may be repeat on the day 1 of that surgery too. Then we will initiate the bridge therapy, that is of unfractionated heparin, subcutaneous or IV. Obviously, she has been hospitalized, so we will give the IV route for that severe condition to cure that rectal bleeding disease, or we can go with low molecular weight heparin. Similarly, when the IR falls below the lower limit of the therapeutic range, then we have to stop IV 6 hours pre-procedure or stop SQUFH for 24 hours pre-procedure. If we are giving unfractionated heparin, so we have to stop it 6 hours prior to the surgery, and if we are giving low molecular weight heparin, then we have to stop it 24 hours prior to the surgery. Then we can resume warfarin 12 to 24 hours. Means after the surgery, we can go back with the normal dose or maintenance dose of the warfarin after 12 to 24 hours of surgery, that was 7.5 mg once daily. So that's it. Hope you all are clear now. Thank you.